I found my sister's clothes hidden in my husband's closet. When confronted, they said this isn't your business. Years later, they called begging for help. I smiled and said the exact same words back. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. I'm Audrey, I'm 36 now, and I've been divorced for 3 years. But this story really starts long before the papers were signed, back when I was blissfully, stupidly unaware that the two people I loved most in the world were the architects of my greatest heartbreak. My life with Grant, looking back, it feels like watching a movie about someone else. We met at a crowded house party when we were 25. I was never good at those things, always ending up in a corner pretending to be fascinated by a houseplant. He had this easy smile that just drew people in. I remember he came up to me while I was awkwardly trying to get a drink from a packed cooler and said, "You look like you need a rescue." And just like that, he rescued me. We found a quiet spot on the back porch and talked for hours, the party noise fading into a dull hum. By the end of the night, when he walked me to my car and asked for my number, I knew. I just knew this was different. We dated for 3 wonderful years. He wasn't about grand, flashy gestures. His love was in the details. He learned that I hated pickles, so he'd always check my sandwiches. He'd leave little post-it notes on the bathroom mirror on mornings he knew I had a tough day at work, saying things like, "You've got this." I remember our first apartment together, a tiny little walk-up with slanted floors. We spent a whole weekend painting the walls a sunny yellow, laughing as we got more paint on ourselves than on the walls. That night, we ordered pizza and ate it on the floor, surrounded by drop cloths and cans, and I thought, this is it. This is happiness. He proposed on a rainy Tuesday, right in that sunny yellow living room. No fancy dinner, no hidden ring in a champagne glass. He just knelt down, his eyes full of so much love, and said he couldn't imagine another day of his life without me in it permanently. Of course, I said yes. We were married for 5 years, and those years were, for the most part, exactly what I'd dreamed of. We built a life. We had our routines, Sunday morning pancakes, where he always tried to make them into funny shapes, and Friday night movies on the couch, where I'd always fall asleep on his shoulder. It was comfortable. It was safe. And through it all, there was Delia. My little sister. Delia wasn't just my sister, she was my other half, my built-in best friend. Only 4 years younger, she was the person I called when I had a bad day, the one I'd text 100 times from a dressing room asking if a dress made me look weird. She knew all my secrets. Or so I thought. When I called to tell her Grant and I were engaged, she squealed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. There was no one happier for me than Delia. She was my maid of honor, of course. I remember us getting ready on my wedding day, just the two of us in the room. She was zipping up my dress, her eyes misty. "You deserve all the happiness in the world, Audrey," she'd said. I can still picture her standing beside me at the altar, giving a beautiful toast at the reception about how Grant and I were the definition of perfect. The irony is so thick now, it's hard to breathe. I loved that Grant and Delia got along so well. He treated her like the little sister he never had. They'd team up to tease me, they'd have inside jokes. I thought it was sweet. I thought it meant my perfect little world was complete. I had the perfect husband and the perfect sister, and they adored each other. I just had no idea how much. I remember the first time Grant met my family like it was yesterday. We'd been dating for about 7 months, and things were getting serious. I'd already met his parents, a quiet, lovely couple from Ohio who were as sweet as pie. But my family was a bit more energetic. I'm the middle child, you see. I have my older brother, Sterling, who's always been my protector and my rock, and then there's Delia, my shadow. I was so nervous that night, driving to my parents' house in the suburbs. I kept fiddling with the car radio, unable to find a song that would calm my nerves. Grant reached over and put his hand on mine. Hey. It's going to be fine. What if they don't like me? He asked, a playful grin on his face. I laughed. Everyone likes you, I told him. And I was right. My parents adored him instantly. My dad, a man of few words, was soon deep in conversation with him about lawn care, of all things. My mom was charmed by his manners. Sterling gave him the typical big brother grilling for the first hour, asking about his job, his intentions, his 5-year plan. But by the end of the night, they were on the back porch, sharing a beer and talking about football like they'd known each other for years. But his connection with Delia, that was different. It was immediate. It was electric. I remember watching them from the kitchen as I helped my mom with dessert. They were huddled on the sofa, laughing about some British TV show they both loved, a show I'd never even heard of. They were talking so fast, finishing each other's sentences. Then my mom served her famous pot roast, and they both started talking about how they enjoyed cooking. He knew exactly what obscure spice she was talking about. They just clicked. It was like they spoke a secret language. Later that night, while we were helping clear the dishes, they started quoting lines from some old black and white movie, back and forth, not missing a beat, while Sterling and I just looked at each other, completely lost. I just stood there, smiling. I felt this wave of relief and happiness wash over me. This is it, I thought. This is how it's supposed to be. I was so proud that my family loved him, so happy that my sister, my best friend, approved so wholeheartedly. She pulled me aside before we left, while Grant was saying goodbye to my parents. Audrey, he's perfect, she whispered, hugging me tight. Seriously. He's funny, he's smart, he's handsome. Don't you ever let this one go. Over the next few years, that bond between them only grew stronger. They became genuine friends. We'd have double dates sometimes, back when Delia had a string of short-term boyfriends. She'd always joke, looking at Grant, I wish you had a brother so I could find one just like you. I always took it as the highest compliment. I never, not for one single, solitary second, thought there was anything more to it. Why would I? This was my husband, the man who left me love notes. This was my sister, my other half. In my mind, they were the two people in the world who would never, ever, under any circumstances, hurt me. But no marriage is a fairy tale, is it? Not really. Even in my perfect world, there were cracks starting to form. They were hairline fractures at first, easy to paint over and ignore, but they were there, weakening the foundation. The two biggest ones were kids and my career. Grant wanted to start a family. Badly. About 2 years into our marriage, it became his favorite topic of conversation. It started subtly. He'd point out babies in the park, talking about how cute they were. Then it became more direct. We'd visit friends who had just had a baby, and on the car ride home, he'd say, "Don't you just want that, Audrey? To have our own little person to love?" The pressure was mounting. I remember one Sunday afternoon, we were just lounging around, and he brought it up again. I was thinking, he said, we could start trying. Just see what happens. I put my book down. Grant, we've talked about this. I'm just not ready. His face fell. When will you be ready? You're not getting any younger. I want to be a dad while I still have the energy to throw a football around. I know you do, I said, trying to keep my voice soft. And I think you'll be an amazing dad. But I'm just not there yet. Emotionally, mentally, my job is so demanding. I don't feel ready to be a mother. I believed then, and I still believe now, that bringing a child into this world is the biggest responsibility you can have. I'd rather not do it at all than do it wrong. He got up and started pacing. That's always your excuse, your job. It's like you're already married to it. Each time we had this conversation, it felt like a little paper cut on my heart. I'd made my feelings clear from the very beginning of our relationship, but he'd clearly assumed I'd just fall in line once the ring was on my finger. Then there was my job itself. I'm an investment banker. It's a demanding, high-stress, long hours kind of world. But I'm good at it, and I thrive on the challenge. More importantly, my salary was what kept our comfortable lifestyle afloat. We had a nice house, 2 nice cars, we took nice vacations. My income was more than double his. Grant worked in marketing. He was good at his job, but he wasn't passionate about it. And he resented the time and energy I poured into mine. I'll never forget one specific fight. I had to cancel our dinner reservations for the 3rd time that month because of a last-minute crisis at work. I came home around 10 p.m., exhausted, to find him sitting in the dark, watching TV. "Sorry I'm so late," I said, dropping my bag by the door. "It was crazy tonight." He didn't even look at me. Must have been. I ate alone. Again. "I know, Grant, and I'm sorry. But this deal is huge. A big promotion could be on the line." He finally turned to me, his face a mask of cold anger. "Is that all you care about? Promotions? Money? What about me, Audrey? What about our life? I feel like I'm living with a ghost. You're never here. That's not fair." I shot back, my own exhaustion turning to anger. "My ghost pays the mortgage. My ghost pays for your golf club membership. We can't live this life on your salary alone, and you know it." It was a low blow, and I regretted it as soon as I said it. But it was true. It was a vicious cycle. He wanted me to be a more relaxed, present, stay-at-home type of wife, but he also wasn't willing to give up the lifestyle that my demanding job provided. I felt like I was being pulled in 2 different directions, and no matter what I did, I was letting him down. We'd fight, then we'd make up, and things would be fine for a while. I told myself it was normal. All couples fight. We were in it for the long haul. I just didn't realize that while I was fighting for our marriage, he was finding comfort, and a whole lot more, somewhere else. The day my world fell apart started with our 5th wedding anniversary. Grant had made reservations at a fancy French restaurant downtown, the kind you have to book months in advance. He gave me a beautiful diamond necklace. He held my hand across the table and told me how much he loved me, how the last 5 years had been the best of his life. But something felt off. His eyes didn't quite meet mine. His smile seemed plastered on. The whole evening felt rehearsed, like he was playing the part of a loving husband from a script. I pushed the feeling down, telling myself I was just tired and stressed from work, that I was projecting my own anxieties onto him. A few days later, I was getting ready for a big work event, a charity gala my company sponsored every year. I had the perfect dress, but I was looking for a specific black cashmere wrap to go with it, one I hadn't worn in a while. I tore through my closet, my dresses and blouses a blur of color. It was nowhere. I had a faint memory of maybe hanging it in the guest room closet after the last time I wore it. But on a whim, I thought, maybe I put it in Grant's closet by mistake when I was rushing. His closet was always perfectly organized, a stark contrast to my creative chaos. Suits on the left, shirts on the right, all arranged by color. I ran my hand along his row of suits, the scent of his cedar and sandalwood cologne filling the small space. It was a familiar, comforting smell, the smell of my husband. In the back, behind a stack of old shoeboxes, I saw something out of place. A canvas duffel bag, the kind you'd take to the gym, was pushed all the way into the corner, almost hidden from view. It wasn't one of his. I knew his luggage. I'd bought him a matching set for his birthday 2 years ago. I pulled it out, curiosity getting the better of me. It felt surprisingly heavy. I placed it on the floor and unzipped it. The first thing I saw was a red silk blouse. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I knew that blouse. Delia had worn it to my birthday dinner 2 months ago. I had told her how great it looked on her. My heart started to beat a frantic, uneven rhythm. I pushed the blouse aside, my hands shaking. Underneath was a pair of jeans with a specific tear at the knee that I recognized. Then a gray sweater, the one I'd complimented her on just last week at our Sunday family dinner. It was a whole bag full of Delia's clothes. Her shampoo, her toothbrush, even her favorite brand of tea bags were in a side pocket. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe she stayed over and forgot it? But why would it be hidden in the back of his closet? Maybe she was storing some things here because her apartment was small? But none of it made sense. A cold, sick feeling started to creep up from the pit of my stomach. It was a physical sensation, like I had swallowed ice. I just stood there, in the quiet of our sunlit bedroom, staring into that bag. Staring at the proof of a betrayal I wasn't yet ready to comprehend. I slowly zipped the bag up, my fingers clumsy. I pushed it back into the corner, right where I found it, and walked out of the closet, closing the door behind me with a soft click. The comforting smell of his cologne now just smelled like lies. I spent the rest of the day in a fog. I called my office and told them I was sick. I couldn't go to the gala. I couldn't face people, make small talk, pretend that my entire world hadn't just tilted on its axis. I moved through the house like a zombie, the image of that bag burned into my mind. What was I supposed to do? Confront him? He'd just come up with some lie, some plausible explanation, and I, the trusting wife who wanted to believe him, probably would. He'd have time to cover his tracks, to delete the evidence, to make me feel like I was the crazy one. No. I needed to know the truth. The whole truth. That night, I did something I had sworn I would never do in our entire relationship. I waited until he was asleep. I lay beside him, my body rigid, listening to his breathing, deep and even. It was the same sound that had lulled me to sleep for 8 years, but tonight it sounded monstrous. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears, a frantic drumbeat of dread. I reached over to his nightstand, my fingers trembling so badly it took me 2 tries to pick up his phone. Our trust had been a sacred thing. We never checked each other's phones. We never had a reason to. But he had broken that trust first. He had shattered it into a million pieces. I knew his passcode. It was our anniversary date, 0814. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. I held my breath, the screen's glow unnaturally bright in the dark room, and opened his messages. My eyes scanned the list of names. Mom. Sterling. A few friends. And there it was. Delia. I clicked on her name, and my world ended. For good. It wasn't the conversation of a brother-in-law and sister-in-law. It was intimate. It was filthy. They had pet names for each other. They flirted. They sent pictures I could never unsee. They talked about me. I scrolled up, my thumb moving mechanically, my eyes burning as I read a story of deception that had been happening right under my nose. I saw messages planning their secret meetings, disguised as late nights at the office for him or drinks with friends for her. It had been going on for months. At least 6. I felt the air leave my lungs. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. I read messages where he complained about me, about my job, about my refusal to have kids. And Delia, she was right there, a digital viper, comforting him, telling him he deserved better. She doesn't appreciate you, Grant, one of her messages read. I would, said another. They even talked about a future together, once they figured out how to deal with Audrey. They were planning a life on the ruins of mine. But the message that shattered the last remaining piece of my heart was from the day of our anniversary. While I was sitting across from him at that fancy restaurant, wearing the new necklace he'd given me, he had texted her under the table. I read it, and the words blurred through my tears. Can't wait for this to be over. Thinking of you. Always. I dropped the phone on the bed like it was on fire. A sound escaped my lips, a strangled, wounded animal sound. He stirred in his sleep, mumbling something, and I froze, my body rigid with a mixture of terror and white-hot rage. He rolled over, his back to me, oblivious. And in that moment, lying next to my sleeping, cheating husband, I had never felt so utterly and completely alone in my entire life. The next day was a Saturday. I moved through the house like a ghost, the words from those texts echoing in my head, a cruel taunt. I didn't know what to do, how to even start this conversation that would end my marriage. And then, as if fate wanted to make this as theatrical and painful as possible, the doorbell rang around noon. I opened it, and there was Delia, smiling, holding a box of donuts from our favorite bakery. "Hey, sis. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by for a coffee," she said, breezing past me into the kitchen, completely oblivious. Grant came downstairs, a lazy Saturday smile on his face, which widened when he saw her. "Delia. What a surprise," he said, giving her a hug that lasted just a second too long. I saw his hand linger on the small of her back. They were both here. In my house. In my kitchen. Acting like nothing was wrong. Something inside me, something that had been holding me together, just snapped. I walked silently out of the room, went upstairs to our bedroom, and came back down holding the duffel bag. I walked to the kitchen island and threw it down with a loud thud. The sound made them both jump. The box of donuts slid and fell to the floor, scattering glazed and jelly-filled circles across the tiles. "Can someone explain this to me?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. They stared at the bag, then at each other. A flicker of panic passed between them. The color drained from Grant's face. "Audrey, what is that?" he stammered. "You know what it is, Grant," I said, my voice getting louder. "It's a bag full of my sister's clothes that I found hidden in the back of your closet. And this," I held up his phone, the screen lit up with their message thread, "is a phone full of your secret love letters. So I'll ask again. Explain." Delia wouldn't look at me. She just stared at the floor. Grant looked like a trapped animal, his mouth opening and closing but no sound coming out. I expected denials. I expected apologies. I expected tears. I got none of it. Finally, Delia looked up, and her expression was not one of remorse, but of sheer annoyance. "Look, Audrey, this isn't your business." I actually laughed. A short, sharp, incredulous sound that sounded alien in my own kitchen. "Not my business? My husband is sleeping with my sister, in my house, and it's not my business?" "You're being hysterical," Grant said, finally finding his voice. He had the audacity to sound defensive. "If you weren't so obsessed with your job, if you had just agreed to have a baby and be a real wife, maybe I wouldn't have had to look for comfort somewhere else." I felt a hot flash crawl up my neck. "Comfort? Is that what you call this? You planned a life behind my back. You talked about how to deal with me." Then Delia spoke again, her voice dripping with a casual cruelty that I will never forget. "Honestly, Audrey, you should be happy he kept it in the family. It would have been way more embarrassing for you if it was some random woman from his office. At least this way, we can keep it quiet." I just stared at her, my own sister. The person I had loved and trusted my whole life. They weren't sorry. They were annoyed that they'd been caught. They went on to tell me that they weren't going to stop, that now that I knew, there was no reason to hide it anymore. In that moment, all the love I had for them curdled into something cold and hard. The shock and the pain were still there, but now, there was something else. Rage. A pure, cleansing rage. "Get out," I whispered. "What?" Grant said, looking genuinely confused. I took a deep breath. I said, "Get out," I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat, raw and ragged. I pointed a shaking finger at the door. "Both of you." Get your things out of my house. Now. The next Monday morning, the air still thick with the ghosts of Saturday's confrontation, the first thing I did was call a lawyer. I found the name of a top-rated divorce attorney online and booked a consultation. I walked into her sleek, downtown office feeling like a shell of a person. I didn't want counseling. I didn't want explanations. I wanted this over. I want the house, I told her, my voice flat. I want a significant portion of our assets. My salary has supported our lifestyle for years. And I want it done fast. When Grant was served the papers at his office, he didn't even put up a fight. My lawyer told me his attorney called back the next day to say he would agree to all my terms. I guess he was so eager to start his new life with Delia, free from the burden of hiding, that he was willing to sign anything to make me go away. The whole divorce was finalized in a few short, brutal months. He came to the house one afternoon while I was at work to pack his things. When I got home, all that was left of him was his key on the kitchen counter and an empty space in the closet. Just like that, 5 years of marriage, 8 years of my life, erased. The hardest part, harder than the legal proceedings, was telling my family. I called my brother, Sterling, first. I sat on my bed, staring at the empty side where Grant used to sleep, and I could barely get the words out through my sobs. He was silent on the other end of the line for a long time as I spilled the whole ugly story. Then he said, his voice hard as steel, "I'm on my way. Don't move." He drove 3 hours to be with me that same day. He held me while I cried, made me eat something, and then he got angry for me. He was the one who called our parents and told them what had happened, shielding me from having to say the words again. And he was the one who called Delia. I was in the other room, but I could hear his voice, low and furious. I don't know everything he said, but I know it ended with him telling her, "As far as I'm concerned, I only have one sister now. Don't ever contact me or my family again." My parents were heartbroken and disgusted. They were from a generation where family was everything, and this was an unthinkable betrayal. They cut Delia off completely. No calls, no texts. It was like she had ceased to exist. Our once close family was fractured, maybe forever. A few weeks after the confrontation, Delia moved. She got a job transfer to Pennsylvania, a 9-hour drive away. And as soon as our divorce was final and the money was in his account, Grant followed her. I didn't hear from them. Nobody did. It was just silence. I tried to piece my life back together. I threw myself into my work, burying myself in spreadsheets and meetings, earning a big promotion. I redecorated the house, painting over our sunny yellow walls with a cool, calm gray. I went out with friends who tried to cheer me up. But every night, I'd come home to an empty house that felt too big, too quiet. The silence they left behind was deafening. The first year was a blur of just getting through the day. Every little thing was a landmine of memory. The coffee shop where we had our first date, the park where he proposed, a song on the radio that we used to call our song. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. Some days, just getting out of bed and putting on clothes felt like a monumental achievement. I remember one evening, I tried to cook his favorite pasta dish, just out of pure, mindless habit. Halfway through chopping the onions, I realized what I was doing, and I just slid down the kitchen cabinets and sobbed, the smell of garlic and burning sauce filling the air around me. After about a year, I sold the house. I couldn't stand the memories anymore. Every room held a ghost. I found a smaller, modern apartment in a new part of town where we had never made any memories. Packing up our life together into cardboard boxes was a special kind of hell. Every photo, every souvenir from our travels, every stupid little trinket was a stab to the heart. I hired movers to take most of it to a storage unit. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away just yet. It felt too final. The new apartment was clean and sterile and painfully empty. The first few weeks, the loneliness was a physical weight. The silence was so loud. I'd come home from my long hours at work, eat a frozen dinner in front of the TV, and go to bed. I ignored calls from friends who were trying to help. I just wanted to be alone with my misery, to let it consume me. But you can only do that for so long before you either sink or swim. And I was tired of sinking. Slowly, very slowly, I started to paddle. I started forcing myself to go out. I joined a fancy gym with a pool. I took a pottery class on weekends, something I'd always been curious about. My first few creations were lopsided messes, but the feeling of the clay spinning under my hands was grounding. It was something real to focus on. I started cooking for myself again, discovering new, complicated recipes that required all my attention. And then, on the second anniversary of the divorce, I did something bold. I booked a solo trip to Italy. It was something I'd always wanted to do, but Grant was never interested. He preferred beach resorts. For 10 days, I walked through Rome, I ate pasta in Florence, I drank wine in Tuscany. Sitting at an outdoor cafe one afternoon, with the Italian sun on my face, watching the world go by, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. A quiet, fragile peace. 3 years passed like that. The sharp, stabbing pain of betrayal had faded into a dull, permanent scar. I didn't think about them much anymore. Grant and Delia were a closed chapter, a part of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. I was okay. I was surviving. I was even, on some days, genuinely happy. I had my work, my new friends from pottery class, my quiet little life. And I thought that was how it was going to be forever. It was a Tuesday afternoon, just a normal day. I was in the middle of a conference call at my desk, my screen filled with spreadsheets and reports. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. A Pennsylvania area code. My stomach did a little flip. I almost ignored it. I never answer unknown numbers, but some strange premonition, made me swipe to answer. "Hello?" I said, my voice all business, crisp and professional. There was a pause on the other end, just the sound of someone breathing. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years. A voice I never, ever wanted to hear again. "Audrey?" It was Grant. My blood ran cold. I felt my hand tighten around the phone until my knuckles were white. I muted my conference call. "What do you want, Grant?" I asked, my voice flat and emotionless. His voice was frantic, desperate. It was thin and reedy, nothing like the confident, arrogant tone of the man I remembered. "Audrey, I need your help. I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't an emergency. Something's happened." I stayed silent, my mind racing, 1,000 possibilities swirling. Why was he calling me? After 3 years of absolute silence? What could possibly be so bad that he would crawl back to me? "It's Delia," he said, his voice cracking, and the sound of it sent a jolt through me. "She was in a car accident a few weeks ago. It was bad, Audrey. Really bad. A truck ran a red light. She broke both her legs, her arms are a mess, she has internal injuries. She can't move. She can't do anything for herself." I still said nothing. A part of me, a dark, ugly part that I was ashamed of, felt a flicker of cold satisfaction. But mostly, I just felt numb, like I was listening to a story about strangers. He took my silence as an invitation to keep talking, the words tumbling out of him in a desperate rush. "I've been trying to manage everything, but I can't do it alone. I have to work, her salary is gone now that she's on disability, so we need my income more than ever to pay the medical bills. I've tried to get friends to help, but everyone has their own lives, you know? My mom's in Canada with her sister, my dad's gone. We called your parents, but they said they're too old to manage. We called Sterling, well, you can imagine what he said. He hung up on me. He took a ragged breath, and this is when he dropped the final bomb. Audrey, we have a son. He's 2 years old. His name is Leo. I can't take care of a toddler and a completely incapacitated wife and work at the same time. I haven't slept in weeks. I'm at my breaking point. We've looked into full-time nursing care, but we can't afford it. We're out of options. You're the only family we have left. Please, Audrey. I'm begging you. Can you come help us? Just for a little while, until she's back on her feet. I listened to him lay out his entire, pathetic, desperate situation. I listened to him beg. A son. They had a son. A 2-year-old child born from their lies. And as he spoke, the numbness inside me was replaced by a calm, cold clarity. After 3 years of silence, he had the nerve to call me, not to apologize, not to express 1 ounce of remorse for what they did, but to ask for a favor. A massive, life-altering favor. He had shattered my world, and now he was asking me to come and help him glue his back together. I let the silence stretch out after he finished his desperate plea. It hung heavy in the air, thick with 3 years of unspoken pain. I could hear his ragged breathing on the other end of the line, waiting, hoping. For a moment, I pictured them. Him, run ragged and exhausted, the weight of the world on his shoulders. Her, broken and helpless in a hospital bed, paying a terrible price. And their son, Leo, a little boy I'd never met, my nephew, caught in the middle of it all. I felt a pang of something for the child, a brief, fleeting moment of sympathy. A child should never suffer for the sins of his parents. But that flicker of compassion was quickly extinguished by the roaring fire of memory. I was back in my kitchen, the smell of donuts on the floor, the look of annoyance on their faces. The casual cruelty in their voices. This isn't your business. You should be happy he kept it in the family. They hadn't shown me an ounce of compassion. They hadn't cared about the pain they were inflicting. They had told me my feelings, my marriage, my entire life, was none of my business. He had laid out his entire case. He had shown me all his cards. He was weak, and he was desperate, and he had come to me, the woman he had wronged in the most profound way imaginable, to save him. The power in that moment was intoxicating. After years of feeling like a victim, like a piece of collateral damage in their sordid affair, the scales had finally, dramatically, tipped. Audrey? Are you there? He asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of hope and fear. Please say something. I took a slow, deep breath. I thought about all the things I could say. I could have screamed. I could have cursed him out. I could have listed every single sleepless night, every tear I cried, every way they had destroyed me. But I didn't need to. The perfect words were already there, a gift they had given me 3 years ago. I let my voice be soft, almost gentle, devoid of any anger. I'm here, Grant. I could practically hear the relief in his exhale. So, you'll think about it? You'll help? I paused, letting him hang there in that fragile hope for just 1 more second. I'm sorry to hear about Delia's accident, Grant. I truly am, I said, my voice as calm and clear as a winter morning. But like you both told me all those years ago, it's none of my business. The silence on the other end was absolute, a dead, shocked void. I didn't wait for a response. I pressed the red icon on my screen, ending the call. Then, I calmly opened my contacts, found his number, and I blocked it. I sat there for a long moment, staring at my computer screen where my muted conference call was still going, the phone feeling cool and light in my hand. And then, for the first time in a long, long time, I smiled. If you're still listening to this, and I really hope you are, could you do me a small favor? Please like this video and just comment with the number 1 down below. It lets me know you're here, that you've given me a like, and that you're on this journey with me. Your support means more than you know. It truly does. So please, comment with the number 1, and let me tell you what happened next. I knew word would get back to my parents. Grant was desperate, and he'd run to them next, tattling like a schoolboy. I was right. 2 days later, on Thursday evening, my mother called. Her voice was dripping with disappointment before she even said hello. It was a tone I knew well, one she reserved for when I'd truly let her down. "Audrey, your father, and I just heard the news about Delia." "It's just awful," she began, her voice heavy with manufactured drama. "It is," I said, keeping my tone neutral as I chopped vegetables for my dinner. "Grant called us," she continued. "He was very upset. He told us he also called you, and he told us what you said." There was a long, accusatory pause, designed to make me squirm. "I have to say, Audrey, I am deeply, deeply disappointed in you." I stopped chopping and gripped the phone tighter. "Disappointed? Why would you be disappointed in me, Mom?" "She's your sister," my mom said, her voice rising with indignation. "Your only sister. She's lying in a bed, completely helpless, with a 2-year-old child, and you refuse to help her? What kind of person does that? Family is supposed to be there for each other, no matter what." The hypocrisy was so stunning, so blatant, it almost took my breath away. No matter what? Mom, are you forgetting what she did? What they did? They had an affair for months behind my back. They destroyed my marriage. They humiliated me. They never once apologized. They told me to my face that it was none of my business. And now I'm supposed to drop everything and go play nurse to her? The woman my husband left me for? "It's been 3 years, Audrey," my father said, his gruff voice suddenly on the speakerphone. "It's time to let it go. It's time to be the bigger person. She made a mistake, a terrible one, but she's paying for it now. Don't you have any forgiveness in your heart?" "Forgiveness is one thing," I said, my voice shaking with a sudden surge of anger. "Being a doormat is another. Why don't you go help her? You're her parents. Go to Pennsylvania and take care of your daughter and your grandson." "Oh, don't be ridiculous," my mother scoffed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "We're in our 60s. We're too old to be taking care of an invalid and a toddler. Your father's back isn't what it used to be. You're young, you're single, you have no children. It's easiest for you." That was it. The final straw. They weren't just asking me to help, they were demanding it, using guilt and shame as their weapons. They had completely erased my pain from the equation. My suffering, my years of healing, didn't matter. All that mattered was fixing Delia's problem, making their lives easier. "I'm not discussing this anymore," I said, my voice as cold as ice. "My decision is final. I will not be going to Pennsylvania. If you turn your back on your sister in her time of need," my father's voice was stern, a threat clear in his tone, "you are turning your back on this family. We raised you to be better than this, Audrey. So you think long and hard about that." He hung up. I stood there in my silent kitchen, phone in my hand, shaking. They had betrayed me. Again. They had chosen her, the one who had wrecked our family, over me, the one who had been the victim. They weren't just disappointed, they were threatening to cut me off. And you know what? In that moment, I realized I didn't care. Let them. A few hours later, my phone rang again. This time, it was Sterling. I almost let it go to voicemail, not having the energy for another confrontation, but I saw his name and picked up. "Hey," he said, his voice calm and steady. "Mom and Dad just called me. They gave me their whole song and dance about family and forgiveness. I just wanted to call you and say, you did the right thing. 100%. Don't let them get to you." A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it made my knees feel weak. I sank onto my sofa. "They want to disown me, Sterling." He snorted, a sound of pure derision. "Let them. Audrey, they're the biggest hypocrites I know. Do you remember what happened 5 years ago, when little Jacob fell at the park?" I remembered it vividly. Sterling's oldest son, Jacob, my sweet nephew, who was 4 at the time, had a bad fall from the monkey bars and fractured his wrist. It was a nasty break that required surgery, and after the cast came off, the doctor recommended several months of intensive physical therapy to ensure he regained full motion. Sterling's new business was going through a rough patch back then, and money was incredibly tight. An unexpected medical expense like that was a huge blow. He asked them for a loan, didn't he? I said, the memory coming back into sharp, painful focus. A small one, Sterling confirmed, his voice laced with old bitterness. A few $1,000s for the therapy. I told them I'd pay it back, with interest, as soon as I could. You know what they said to me, Audrey? They sat me down in their perfect living room and told me they were getting older and needed to save for their retirement. They said their financial advisor told them to be cautious. They told me they couldn't just be handing out money like a charity to their own grandson, who was in pain. We were both silent for a moment, letting the weight of that sink in. They wouldn't help their own son with his injured child, but they expect you to drop your entire life, your job, everything, to go take care of the sister who betrayed you and the man who broke your heart, Sterling said, his voice filled with disgust. They don't get to preach about family. They lost that right a long time ago. He told me he had called them back after their conversation and told them just that. He reminded them of Jacob. He told them that if they were going to emotionally blackmail me for setting a boundary, then they could consider him out of the family, too. Talking to him, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't being selfish or stubborn. I was just protecting myself. My parents, with their perfect suburban house and their obsession with appearances, were just as toxic as Grant and Delia. And Sterling and I, we were the only ones who saw it. We were a family of two now. And that was enough. A week went by in silence. I thought that would be the end of it, that they would all finally leave me alone. But then Sterling called me again, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. You're not going to believe this, he said. Delia has been texting me. Non-stop. Photos of Leo. Long, rambling messages about how scared she is. Begging. My heart sank a little. What are you going to do? Here's the thing, he said, and I could hear the conflict in his voice. I can't stand her. I can't stand him. What they did to you is unforgivable. But, Audrey, that little boy. He's my nephew. He's innocent in all of this. I keep thinking about him, stuck in that mess. I knew what he meant. The thought of that little boy, my nephew, living in a house filled with stress and pain, tugged at my heart, too. It wasn't his fault he was born into this disaster. I'm not asking for your permission, Sterling said, and I totally get it if you're mad at me for this. But I wanted you to hear it from me first. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to see them. But I'm going to send them some money each month. I told Grant it was strictly for Leo. Enough to cover a decent daycare or a part-time nurse for the boy. I can't let him suffer because of their stupidity and selfishness. I'm not mad, Sterling, I told him, and I meant it. I think that's the right thing to do. We were better than them. Our capacity for compassion, especially for an innocent child, proved that. I didn't have to get involved personally, but I felt a sense of peace knowing my nephew would be taken care of. For the first month, it seemed to work. Delia sent Sterling overly grateful texts. He sent the money via a bank transfer, and we didn't hear much else. Sterling felt he had done the right thing, found a way to help the child without enabling the adults. But then, about 6 weeks in, Sterling called me, and he was furious. They're playing me for a fool, Audrey. The whole damn time. What happened? My friend, Mark, you remember him? He lives about an hour from them in Pennsylvania. He was in their town for a business dinner and sent me a picture. It was a picture of Grant and a friend of theirs at a high-end steakhouse last night. The kind of place where a single steak costs $200. So I did something I probably shouldn't have. I looked at Delia's social media. It's private, but we have a mutual friend who I asked to check for me. 2 days ago, she posted a picture of a new designer purse. A purse that costs more than my monthly mortgage payment. Her caption was a little retail therapy to lift the spirits. He was quiet for a moment, and I could just picture him pinching the bridge of his nose. They're using the money for luxuries, Audrey. For steak dinners and handbags. While they're supposedly on the brink of financial ruin. They could have been saving, cutting back, but they're just maintaining their lifestyle on my dime. I wasn't even surprised. Just disappointed. It seems some people never, ever change. I'm cutting them off, Sterling said, his voice final and cold. I just left Grant a voicemail. I told him the Bank of Sterling is officially and permanently closed. I told him I tried to help his son, but he and his wife were too selfish to accept the help in the spirit it was given. I tried. At least my conscience is clear. And that was it. The last bridge was burned. They were truly, completely on their own now. Months passed. Life went back to its quiet, peaceful rhythm. I didn't hear another word about Grant or Delia, and honestly, I didn't want to. Sterling and I grew even closer, becoming each other's primary family. We spent Thanksgiving and Christmas together with his wife and kids. I was their cool, single aunt who brought the best presents, and I loved it. I had completely cut contact with my parents and felt lighter, freer than I had in years. It was amazing how much mental space they had been occupying. Then, one evening in late spring, I was just getting home from my pottery class, my hands still smelling of clay, when my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I was expecting a call from a furniture delivery company. Hello? It was my father. His voice sounded old and tired, stripped of its usual bluster. Audrey. It's your mother. My heart jumped into my throat. Even after everything, your first instinct is fear. What's wrong? Is she okay? She had a fall in the kitchen. She's okay, not a life or death thing, he said quickly. But she slipped on some water on the floor and she's broken her hip. The doctor said she has to stay in bed, very little movement, for several weeks. I was silent. The irony was so thick, so perfect, it was almost comical. Another helpless woman in the family. I know we haven't spoken, he said, rushing to fill the silence, his voice taking on a pleading tone I had never heard from him before. And I know things are complicated. But I can't do this alone, Audrey. I'm not as young as I used to be. I need you to come over in the evenings, after work. Just to help with dinner, keep her company so I can run errands. I can't be with her 24/7. I listened to him, and I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, no satisfaction. Just a profound sense of distance. It was like listening to a stranger talk about his problems. He and my mother were just two elderly people I used to know. I'm sorry to hear that, Dad, I said, my voice even in calm. I hope she has a speedy recovery. So you'll come? He asked, a hopeful note in his voice. Just for a few hours each day? I took a breath, looking around my peaceful, quiet apartment. My sanctuary. No. I won't. Audrey, for God's sake, she's your mother, he sputtered, his old anger flaring up. And you are my parents, I replied, my voice still calm, still unshakable. The parents who had to save for their retirement when their 4-year-old grandson needed physical therapy. The parents who told me I was selfish and hard-hearted for not taking care of the woman who destroyed my life. You have money. You always have. You were so worried about saving it. Well, now is the time to spend it. Use your retirement savings and hire a full-time nurse. That's what it's for, right? Emergencies? My peace of mind is my own inheritance, and I'm not sacrificing it. He was speechless. completely and utterly speechless. "I have to go," I said gently. "I truly do wish Mom the best." I hung up before he could respond. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that this time it was truly over. The cycle of guilt and obligation was broken. They had made their choices for years, always prioritizing themselves and their image. And now, I had made mine. And my choice was peace. My choice was myself. And so here I am. It's been almost a year since that last call from my father. I don't know what happened to Grant and Delia, and I have no desire to find out. I assume my parents hired the help they needed. Their world, with all its drama, its demands, its manufactured crises and its toxicity, no longer touches mine. My life is quiet now, but it's a good quiet. It's a peaceful quiet. My apartment doesn't feel empty anymore, it feels like a sanctuary. I excel at my job, not because I'm trying to escape, but because I genuinely enjoy it. I have a wonderful circle of friends, some from my old life, some new ones from my pottery class. We have dinner parties, we go on weekend trips. It's a life filled with laughter and genuine affection. My shelves are now filled with my own lopsided, imperfect, beautiful creations. Each one is a reminder that you can take something formless and messy and, with patience, shape it into something whole. I'm still single, and I'm happy. Maybe one day I'll meet someone else, but I'm not looking. I'm not waiting to be rescued anymore. I'm learning to be my own rescue. I'm rediscovering who Audrey is without a husband, without a sister, without the parents I thought I had. I am just Audrey. And for the first time in a very long time, that feels like more than enough. Breaking away from a toxic family is one of the hardest things a person can do. It's painful and it's messy, and people will call you selfish and cold for doing it. But sometimes, the only way to heal, the only way to truly save yourself, is to amputate the parts of your life that are poisoning you. I chose to save myself. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It means the world to me to be able to share it, to get it all out. If any part of this resonated with you, or if you've been through something similar and have a story of choosing your own peace, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Knowing we're not alone in these struggles, well, that's everything, isn't it? Take care of yourselves.